Hello, and welcome to the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast, the podcast redefining women's health, one unfiltered conversation at a time. I'm your host, Jacqueline Rose, and every week I'll sit down with leading women's health experts and real women to share their lived experiences, bust health myths, challenge outdated and uninformed narratives, and explore what's really possible for women. We'll talk about periods, fertility, menopause, hormones, aging, and everything in between. This podcast is for every woman who ever felt confused, dismissed, or left out of the conversation about her own health. It is a space to celebrate women, break the silence, and open up conversations between mothers, daughters, sisters, and friends. Please hit the follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode, and share this podcast with your daughters, family, and friends. Let's get on with the episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast. And today we are going to have a fascinating conversation. Things that I think a lot of our daughters are dealing with, actually. So, even though this is a conversation between two professionals, as always, this is definitely a conversation you're going to want your daughters to listen to, because we're going to be talking about a lot of things that they are really dealing with today in their lived experience and things that they're brushing up against. So I'm very excited to welcome Esther to the conversation. Esther, thank you for joining me. Tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and we'll dive right in.
Okay, hi Jacqueline. Thank you so much for inviting me on your podcast. Very exciting. So, I'm a registered nutritional therapist. I'm based in London in the UK, and I see clients one-to-one for nutritional therapy consultations for a whole range of things. But the clients I see are focusing on cardiometabolic health. So pre-diabetes and cholesterol, weight management. And I lecture in personalized nutrition on a master's program. So I kind of have two roles, which I fulfill. So I also work with students as well as my clients.
Amazing. So we're going to dive right in. And I really want to ask you about the way that we grew up. We're a similar age, Generation X, heading into our 50s or early 50s. And we grew up with that amazing concept of low fat diets. And that was the thing that we were all doing in the 80s and the 90s. That was what the health recommendations were. Fats were the bad guys. No one wanted fats in their diet. And now, for many of us in perimenopause, we're hearing the exact opposite. You want healthy fats and you want to have more fats. And it can be very confusing, especially for those of us that really grew up. And these products are still on the shelves today. These low-fat products are still very popular today as part of a weight loss management protocol. What is really going on here? Do we want low fats? Do we want high fats? What is this whole concept of fats? Let's sort of dive right into that conversation.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And certainly, I see women of a certain age coming to me and they still have this belief and they're still, on the low fat and, looking for low fat products and telling me with glee how they're having low fat products and expect me to be really excited about it. So, certainly, there is evidence that both low fat and low carbohydrate diets can help for weight loss. I think what happens is that people go to the extreme of trying to cut out all fat and forgetting that we actually need essential fats in our diet in order to function properly. So, for example, our brain is made 60% of fat, and our nerve cells, in fact, every cell in our body is surrounded by a little fatty membrane. Our hormones start off as a fat molecule as well. So we certainly need fats in our diet. And I think what happens with the low fat whole teaching or theory is that people think that they have to get rid of all fat, when really what we're looking for is to sort of think about what are the healthier fats to be having, and maybe less of or reducing to some extent the unhealthy fats from fried foods and margarines and pastries and all those sorts of things, and including fats from foods like oily fish and olive oil and seeds and nuts, avocados, things like that.
Yeah, I know. I remember growing up, like you'd have your healthy salad, but God forbid you touch an avocado,
That's
because an
right.
avocado is
That's
way
right.
too fattening to include in your salad.
But people still ask this. people still want to know, and they're terrified to have these things because of very inbuilt beliefs around food. And avocados are one of the healthiest foods. They're full of nutrients and healthy fats, as I've said, fiber, but they pack a hefty nutrition punch for considering it's just one fruit there. You can really get a lot of your nutrients in there. So I'd
I,
certainly,
I think I think one of the things that probably was lost in this whole fad, and I do call it a fad because I don't think it's nutritionally sound advice anymore, is that not all fats are created equal. Like a donut is not the same as an avocado.
exactly.
Whatever the calorie element of it is, the
That's enough. Yeah.
fats from a donut is not the same as fats from an avocado, even if they are similar in the numbers.
Yeah, that's another thing I think that certainly people hang on to is the calories and how many calories am I having? And I've just had this number of calories a day. And it's like, well, you can have your calories and you could have, a chocolate bar and um, a chocolate spread sandwich, and you can still be having less calories than if you're eating a fish and salad and jacket potato. And it could be less calories than that. But like, where are you going to get your nutrients from if you're just eating the same number of calories, but all with processed and junk foods? So it really is, we want to think about good quality calories rather than empty calories. In fact, I don't even let my clients think about calories very much at all, because I think that thinking about calories can make you a little bit crazy and like obsessed. And I don't like my clients to be obsessed with counting and measuring. Um, I
I
want
mean,
people
it
to have
goes
a
back to
healthy,
that,
yeah,
to that.
people should have a healthy relationship with their food and not be weighing it out and counting grapes or things like that. It's
I
crazy.
know, but that is how we grew up, whether it
That
was
is
Weight
right.
Watchers or Slimmers World or any
Yes.
of these organized diet plans. It was all counting points, which was just another way of counting calories, counting
Yes.
portion sizes, counting. It was everything was counting and measuring. And none of us really, even if those of us did lose weight in those programs, it didn't actually serve any of us well.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And I think it's given a lot of people, certainly women of our age and older, a lot of uh, unhelpful beliefs around food, which plays out in these years when it's so important to have healthy fats and proteins and the right types of carbohydrates. These are all things that we need to be having at all stages of life, but particularly not reducing them at this stage of life.
So I want to go back to something that you said, which I don't want to brush over. You said that our brain is 60% fat.
Yeah,
I think that's something that
that's
women
what they
don't
say.
realize. Yeah.
Yeah.
At least 60% fat, which
Yeah.
means that any woman in perimenopause or menopause who is experiencing any type of cognitive changes and at the same time is watching her fat intake, you're going to get a bit of a double whammy because you've got those cognitive changes related to perimenopause, menopause, hormonal fluctuations, and you are not nourishing and refueling your brain with the extra fats it needs. And I want to ask that question in the context of the types of meals and the types of things that we should be eating, and about the way that as very busy women, we are often running around and grabbing things on the go. I
Yeah.
love the best thing that I love, and I post about this regularly, is the healthy snack bars, when you actually look at the back of the nutritional values, the amount of carbohydrates and sugars there are in the healthy snack
Healthy
bars.
and natural. Yeah.
All women who are having, coffee. I've also posted about this. Coffee is not a full meal. Coffee is not a meal replacement, but so many women are so busy. So, what are the things that we really need to be paying attention to,
Okay.
despite or somehow to combine our very busy lives with really thinking about how we need to nourish and support ourselves, especially at this perimenopause,
Yeah.
menopause stage of life?
Okay, I just want to first of all say, because I hope it's clear that it's not just about fats that's influencing the current, perimenopause, but it's also about fluctuations in hormones as well, estrogen receptors, and that are in the brain. But there's lots of things that we can do to help support and have a smoother transition through the perimenopause. So what are the types of things that we should really be thinking about making sure we have enough protein in our diet? I think it's very easy. A lot of the very grabbable foods are not protein foods. So protein is found in animal foods like chicken, beef, lamb, fish, dairy, eggs, and also in some plant foods, vegetarian foods like lentils and chickpeas, different legumes, nuts, seeds, tofu, so soya foods, edamame, tofu, tempeh. So that's where we find protein. And there are actually some really easy things that you can do. You could just sort of hard boil some eggs, grab a hard boiled egg, have some edamame, some nuts, peanut butter, spread on some, an apple or something, or just a spoon of peanut butter. The low sugar one, obviously, just the one that's just made of nuts would be the best one, all these nut butters. That's something that people are always surprised about. Oh, nut butter, that's so fattening, I can't have that. But if you choose one that's made just of nuts, then it can give you, a lot of health benefits, protein and healthy fats, right there in that 1 tablespoon. So protein is one of the macronutrients. So macronutrients is one of the parts of our diet that we need in large quantities, and the others are carbohydrates. And people are often like, oh, I can't have any carbohydrates, that's terrible. But there are lots of healthy carbohydrates, and the ones we should be choosing are like root vegetables, so carrots, beetroots, sweet potatoes, baked potatoes with, potatoes with the skin on, keep all that fiber there, and whole grains, so oats and barley, quinoa, anything made with whole grains, really. So, wheat, oats, all of those whole grains. So those are all healthy carbohydrates. They've got protein, fiber in them, sorry, they've got some fiber in them to help slow the release of glucose into the blood. And the other one, of course, is that we've talked about is healthy fats. Healthy fats, as we've said, oily fish. So if people are really busy, I would suggest that they have things in their kitchen, like store cupboard essentials, so bags of nuts, tins of fish like mackerel, sardines, herring, tins of so fish, tins of beans, tins of chickpeas, tubs in the fridge of hummus, tahina, things, just that are easy to eat.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, because often it is so much easier to grab the crunchy bar, which
Yes,
I think is going to be your healthy alternative, or to, obviously chocolate and cookies and all those types of things. But when it comes to
yes,
thinking about, oh my gosh, I've got to make myself a meal, I've got to make
yes.
myself
No one
a
wants to
high
do that.
protein, high fat, high fiber meal, and they're sort of racking their brains about what that's going to look like in a lunch
Yeah,
option, it becomes, quite challenging.
yeah,
A lot of what you've said is very either easy to prepare, so you can,
yeah.
boil a bunch of eggs at the beginning of the day, or just to have.
Tub of cottage cheese, easy. An avocado, literally cut open, scoop out and eat. We have some ready-made foods that are very healthy,
Yeah.
and
And again,
minimally
that thing
processed.
about the nut butters, the peanut butter, the almond butter, all those types of things, which again in our brains are like, no, 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 we don't have peanut butter. We're
Yeah.
not talking about Skippy, not to
No,
bad
we're not
mouth
going to
any
mention any brands,
brand.
but
But
yeah,
yeah, we're not talking about, a processed brand of peanut butter. We're talking about more natural brand of peanut butter where, or almond butter,
the
where it's
ingredient is
only the
nuts.
ingredient in
That's right.
nuts.
That's
Then
right.
then those things, absolutely, you have it on a spoon, just eat it.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
there are some very healthy, easy alternatives to the typical traditional things of, like, let's just make a bowl of pasta because it's the easiest thing that isn't,
Yeah.
is done in
And
five.
if you do have a bowl of pasta, which is carbohydrate, put it with some protein. Tip a tin of tuna on it, or mackerel, or chickpeas, or cottage cheese. Don't just squirt ketchup on like some people do, just a sprinkle of cheese or something. Like, make it healthier. Don't make pasta the main part of that meal. Do some pasta in the bowl and then add some, bolognese sauce. So make it a balanced meal. So it's not just a plate of pasta.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. 100%, 100%. And it doesn't need to be complicated. You just got to know what to do,
You
but it
just
doesn't
have
need
to
to be
know it
complicated.
exactly. Yeah. Yogurt's a great one. Yogurt's an easy thing to grab, a plain yogurt and then pop some
Or
berries
Greek
on it.
yogurt. Greek
Yeah,
yogurt
just a
is
plain,
very,
yeah, exactly. So coming back to the low fat thing that we said at the beginning, we talked about low fat. So a lot of these low fat yogurts, if you look on the ingredients, they contain lots of sugars and things. So really, when you're looking at the ingredients, you just want to make sure that the only ingredient in a yogurt is yogurt. It's that easy.
yeah. If you're seeing sugar anywhere in the top five
Yeah,
ingredients, you really want to steer clear of it.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Even if it's a healthy product, you
Certainly
want
not something to have every day anyway, at least. Something, yeah.
let me ask you, because we've spoken a lot about protein and these healthy fats. What if you are vegetarian or
Yeah.
vegan? Where does the whole concept of, you know, red meat is really healthy, or all these sort of animal-based protein sources
Yeah.
versus plant-based protein sources? Sort of where does that sort of fall for you?
Okay, so I don't think there's one answer to this. I think we have to accept that as humans there are different diets. Different people do well on different diets. We know that different civilizations over the millennia have done well on different diets. There are some countries and nations that follow vegan diets and have done for forever, as long as they've been around, and they're fine, they're still here. And there are other tribes that just eat raw meat, and they're fine, and they have, that they're in good health. I think that there's this very emotional, there's a lot of emotion around meat and about animal welfare, quite rightly. I think that people maybe are eating too much meat and that too much is being produced. However, I do think, it's not what I think, that it's been proven that there are healthy, that meat is healthy in certain amounts, and that we should be eating the best quality meat that we can afford rather than very processed types of meats. So salamis and hot dogs, those sorts of things are very highly processed meats, and I
Yeah,
wouldn't recommend anyone really eat them ever.
yeah,
Very rarely.
yeah.
But red meat can be part of a healthy, balanced diet.
Right. And if you did want to get your protein sources from plant-based
Yeah,
sources,
yes.
what are our options there?
Yeah, so tofu, edamame beans, legumes, all
Yeah.
types of kidney beans, pinto beans, haricot beans, butter beans, kidney beans. Did I say that one already? All those, lentils, chickpeas, all of those.
Okay.
If they're eggs and dairy, unless they're vegan.
Yeah.
But vegans should really take care to make sure that they're getting enough, because you need to eat more generally of the food to get the amount of protein than if you're having animal sources. And there are also some other nutrients that you should be aware of if you're going to be vegan and that you should keep an eye on. So things like iron, which we get from both plant and animal foods, but it's much more bioavailable to us from animal food. So we should make sure, to get iron levels checked if you're vegan, for a long time. And vitamin B12, vitamin D, iodine, omega-3 fats. So these are all things that we should be making sure that we're getting. So a healthy vegan diet needs quite a bit of thought and planning. I mean, any healthy diet does, but a vegan diet needs really that little bit more thought and maybe monitoring as well, making sure that blood levels are optimal in
Yeah.
things like B12, especially
That's
in older
really
people as
important.
well. Yeah, it's really
Really, really
important.
important. So I want to just mention two things, the things that you've said. The first one is that I know from myself, my own personal experience, and also from my clients, that as we navigate it through perimenopause into menopause, we have often developed new food sensitivities or things that we used to be able to eat with no problem. Now we have problems. So things
Yeah,
like gluten, we're not, celiac or
that's right.
officially gluten sensitive, but your body just responds differently. There's more bloating, there's more stomach cramps. You can't
Yeah,
tolerate the same foods. I know for me personally, beans and pulses just does not, and the lentils, all of those plant-based fiber and protein sources
Right.
for me personally, I just don't do well on them anymore. My stomach
Yes.
doesn't tolerate them in the same way. So I just want to sort of mention that because there is what is it works in theory, also with the dairy. But every woman who's navigating through her menopause journey may find that the foods she used to be able to tolerate really, really well before and enjoy now become a little bit more problematic.
Yes, yeah. And it's important to understand that these things can often be temporary and to try those foods again as well. Obviously, not if there's a diagnosed
Yeah.
allergy, and, if that's, then you obviously don't have those foods, but something that you're not able to tolerate well at one point in your life, you may be able to tolerate at a later point, or you may be able to tolerate in certain quantities. So, for example, you might like if you're reacting to onions, for example, you might be fine having, like a couple of, one onion that's in a bolognese sauce for 4 people, and you can tolerate that. But a whole bowl of onion soup is too much because of the way that the onion ferments in the gut.
Yeah.
It's a carbohydrate and it ferments and can produce gases,
Yeah.
which can lead to uncomfortable bloating and pain. So
Well,
and that,
I will tell you, I have this strange thing, but I'm sure it's quite common where yellow hard cheese I can tolerate, but
yes,
cooked cheese like a cauliflower cheese, I can't. It bloats me, gassy, uncomfortable.
right.
So the same item, like you said, like an onion, the same
Yeah.
item in its, uncooked form versus its
Yeah.
cooked form
Yeah, that's
doesn't
quite.
do well with me.
Yeah, that's right. And it's because of the way that the food is changed in different processes like cooking, or you may be able to have cheese but not milk, where there's been a change in the process and that protein has changed form. So you can react to it in a different way. So it is important, really, instead of excluding whole food groups, to really sort of try different things and make sure that you're eating from as wide variety as you can at the moment, and just realizing that in a few years' time, you might try that cheese again and you might be fine.
Okay. And the other thing I wanted to mention was I personally talk a lot about, and I know it's very much in the menopause conversation, that we really want to avoid carbohydrates. I know you've mentioned there, not all carbohydrates are made equal. We've got
Yes,
complex carbs, etc. But when we're talking about this conversation over a woman's life cycle,
yes,
what is your thoughts about what you need at different times of your cycle, of your menstrual cycle? That at different times of your menstrual cycle or at different times of your life cycle, your body needs different things. So in general, maybe you don't need such high carbohydrate content at certain points during your cycle, but maybe at other times there's a lot of carb cravings and you want to make sure you're having the right type of carbs. What are your thoughts
yeah.
about sort of this
Okay.
cyclical element of diet, nutrition, food?
What I don't want to do is sort of make a generalized statement and then for people to take what I'm saying as something that's going to work for them.
Yeah.
So I'm quite wary about that. What I would say is that I think all the different food groups are important all the way through a woman's life. I think if you are having carbohydrate cravings, then, not to give into it, but just to be a little bit kind to yourself and maybe have the chocolate bar and then have some nuts with it as well, just to sort of balance those blood sugar levels and not to sort of punish yourself thinking, that it's a terrible thing you're doing. You're not, you're looking after yourself, actually. I sometimes say to my clients, at the end of the day, you just want to, all we're all both doing here is looking after you. And if looking after you looks like having fruit and a jog, a run, that might be fine. But sometimes looking after you means just curling up on the couch and having a hot chocolate, and that's okay as well. It's just about getting the balance and not having the hot chocolate, all the
Every single
time,
day. Yeah.
constantly. Yeah, if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do right there. But also, what might happen is that once you're sort of putting some of these ideas into practice and having more balanced meals and balancing blood sugar, that actually some of those cravings might not be as bad as they once were. And it can take, because um, nutrition recommendations are not strong like drugs, it can take a few months to feel the effect. But if you can persevere with it a little bit, you might find that actually over time, oh, I'm feeling a little bit better than I was this time in my cycle 2 months ago or 3 months ago. So I would really, instead of sort of being very, I wouldn't want anyone to be restrictive in such a strong sense like that and to be very prescriptive about different days in the cycle. Um, but just to just to try and practice more balanced meals long term and be consistent with it.
Yeah.
And actually, over a couple of months, that might lead to some improvement in how you're feeling.
I think that's very sensible. I think it's very personalized, as you've said, and as we've said, it's, what works for one person may not work for the other. And what you said about listening to your body, like what is your body actually telling you? What does it actually need? And not, as you said, not giving into it, but paying attention. So if on
Right.
one specific day your body is telling you it needs something, listen to that, listen to those messages of what it's saying to you, and don't necessarily sit on the couch with, a bag of crisps and three packets of chocolate. But what
Yeah.
is it that your body actually really needs? And then,
Yeah.
yeah, not, I think often the restriction plays into this repetitive negative cycle of restriction, cravings, guilt, shame, and
Yeah.
a lot of these things come into.
Yeah. And also thinking of other ways, like what else do you need when you're, having a craving like that? Maybe take some time and have a nice warm bath or something, or just go for a walk or phone someone up or go in a room by yourself or read a trashy magazine or whatever it is that you want to do right then. It doesn't have to be chocolate. Maybe it could be something else just like that's just for you.
Yeah, amazing advice. Okay, we're going to slightly change tack and we're going to get onto this conversation that everyone is talking about
Oh boy.
in 2025. And I know you have a lot of thoughts to share. So, unless you've been living under a rock for the last year,
Yeah.
um, in the public discourse, everyone is now talking about these GLP-1
Yes.
drugs, medication, however you want to call it, under sort of common names of Wegovy, Ozempic, those types of things.
Yes.
Um, I want to have a conversation about it, but not in the concept of is it good, is it bad? But partly sort of, I think the biology of what it actually does, why some people really need it, but also how it's actually changing the conversation about body image and the way
Yeah.
that we perceive, and especially young girls, and this sort of what's happened maybe over the last 20 or 30 years as this conversation about around body image has changed. And one of the things that I think is really important to talk about here, and I know we'll go deeper into it, but I think we all remember maybe in the early 2000s, or sort of, yeah, around about the early 2000s, 2010s, there seemed to have been a switch in the conversation where we were talking more about body positivity,
Yeah.
embracing all different body sizes. I know the company Dove and Always did all these advertisements and adverts on TV and in magazines using a lot of different body shapes, body sizes, women from all different ethnic communities. And I don't know whether I'm just sort of putting something out there that doesn't exist, but from what I've heard and from the conversations I've had within the podcast and from what I can see on social media, it seems we have gone back and backwards, where skinny seems to be ideal. And I'm wondering how this sort of change in the body image conversation is maybe um, mapped or is somehow connected to this growth in the Ozempic conversation. So
Yeah.
that's sort of what I'm thinking about. That's where my sort of head is going. But I really want to throw you the ball and, unpack this all for us.
Okay. So there's a lot to say there. There's a lot to say. So I get asked about this all the time, like just in social situations. People are always asking me about my thoughts on this. Um, and I get asked a lot by clients, and I get a lot of inquiries from clients who different things. Some are thinking about going on them and want to have that discussion with me. I've had someone actually who has been on it, had a terrible hospitalization level reaction,
Mhm.
like really very serious adverse reaction, and then came to me for help, weight management help. And I've also done coaching with people before they've gone on them, and I've worked with people who are currently on them and want to know, how do I eat well? And which is actually the best way. It's really the best way, because these GLP-1 agonists are one tool that we have, and alongside nutrition coaching and about having a good relationship with food and your own body and healthy lifestyle and exercise. So those are the clients really that, are really thinking, okay, what happens when I come off this drug, or in the future? Because, we don't really know. We don't necessarily know that long-term data on how that's going to be. But it could be that people are on these meds for a very long time. I think I've forgotten some of your question actually. Oh yes, about okay. So I still see a lot of body positivity out there actually.
Okay.
I do, and especially the clients that I see, they're generally in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're past that. They're past the
Yeah.
whole, oh, I want to be skinny, like, maybe when they were in their 20s. Um, what is interesting actually is that a lot of women that come, they say, I wish I could be the weight that I was when I was 20, when I first got married, before I had a baby. But when they were that age, they didn't think they were the right size, you know?
Yes. It's
So they wish they
fascinating.
were the size they were, but when they were that age, they felt bad about their bodies. But when they look back at pictures, they think, wow, I have to say, I
Isn't
probably
that
put
really
myself in that as well. I
fascinating?
think, I think
Yeah.
that a lot of us maybe think that we just never thought we were the right size. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so it's just really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's something really important to be teaching the younger generation of
yeah,
girls today,
absolutely.
because there's going to come a time where you may hate the body you're in today, but you're going to look back 20 years time
Yeah,
and want that body
yes,
back again. And
yeah,
that's some very strange mental
yes.
dialogue going on.
Yeah, but generally the women I see now, and the men as well, they want to be healthier.
Yeah.
The people that I've seen, which is obviously a small minority of everyone in the world who wants to lose weight, are wanting to be healthier. We look at their family history. They've often got parents who were overweight and maybe experience complications with cardiovascular disease or diabetes, and they don't want to do that. They say, I want to be better. I want to be healthier. I want to enjoy my grandchildren. I want to be more active, because this generation of grandparents, they want to be an active part in their children and grandchildren's lives, rather than that sort of, my grandparents' generation sort of, sat there and we chatted to them, but they didn't necessarily do things with them, very active things. That might be generalizing, but that was my experience. So, we want to be healthier. I think that generally people that I see that are on these medications are wanting to improve their health. And what I would say is that I think people get judged. People get judged a lot for going on these medications. And what it's really important for everyone else to understand is there really is a genetic component to obesity, that is not in our control. Obviously, it's a genetic component. And it's when people are on these medications, they've explained to me that the food noise that is constantly going on in their head is quieting down, and they can concentrate on other things. And it's very easy for those of us who don't have that to be, oh, well, just cut down and just go for a run and just do this and just do that. But it's just not that clear cut. Some people it is. Some people
Yeah.
can just cut down what they're eating and exercise, and the weight just drops off them. And good for
Yeah.
them. That's
Yeah.
great. But it's just not the same for everyone.
Yeah.
And people
And
really, really struggle and should not be judged because they have decided to go on these GLP-1 agonists
yeah.
that may be really helping them for the first time, and that they actually feel, okay, this is the body that I was meant to be in.
I totally hear that and I totally respect that. And I don't think we're giving enough emphasis to those people that are on it for really significant medical reasons. I think the way that it is being presented, at least in certain circles, is that you've got sort of two groups of people who are on these GLP-1 antagonists. You've got the medically necessitated, who have chronic disease in their family, or they themselves have had chronic disease, and these medications are an absolute lifesaver. And then you've got the people who want to lose 10 pounds and they're going on it.
Yeah, no, that's
And I think that there's sort of a bit of either a misconception, or it's just being presented in a certain way. You've got to sort of, and again, there is a lot of shame, blame, embarrassment, guilt, judgment
yes.
around taking these medications. But in my mind, and maybe this is totally inappropriate, but there seems to be the significantly relevant group of people who are taking it, and then the sort of people that just want to lose weight because they want to fit into their, have a summer body type of thing.
Fine. And but, we have to remember these are pharmaceuticals. These are drugs. These are not natural compounds. They're mimicking, and it's a GLP-1 agonist. It's interesting in my nutrition lectures, when we talk about actual mechanistic pathways, we would talk about some gut hormones, and one of them was GLP, and I just always talked about this GLP. And now suddenly it's GLP, and this is the GLP that it's, this is where it's working. We have to remember there's a drug that's having an effect long term. People are taking this long term in the gut. Something like that needs to be, supported properly with the right nutrition, lifestyle interventions. It's not just about taking the medication and carrying on eating your junk food. It really needs to be used as a tool alongside, I would suggest, really nutrition counseling for anyone this is a drastic thing to do. I know everyone is doing it, but it is quite a thing to do, to commit to taking a medication for a long time. And anyone who is thinking about it should be having nutrition counseling or some sort of coaching around their relationship with food, as well as speaking to a professional about what is the right thing that they should be eating while they are on this. How should they be exercising? It's not just take the medication and just get on with your life.
Yeah, because one of the downsides of this medication is you don't want to eat. There is less food noise. And then what are you eating in the time or with the space that you have of the food that you do, when you do
Some
want to
people
eat?
do. Some people don't feel like that. Some people do still, some people lose appetite, and others, they do eat well. I see a range really. But yeah, it is really important that they're getting the right amount of nutrition in.
Yeah.
That's really, really important, that they're supporting their gut health with fiber, with the right type of fiber. And they're spacing their meals properly, and that they really put some thought into it. These medications are an investment. You're putting something in your body, and obviously most people are paying a lot of money for them as well. So you want to do it right.
Yeah. Amazing. Two last things I want to ask you before we begin to wrap up our conversation. The one is about this concept of superfoods that we hear.
Yes.
And the other one is about supplements.
Yes.
So I will tell you, I definitely want to hear your thoughts around the superfoods. But when it comes to supplements, I know the ideal is that we get all our nutrition and nutrients and nourishment from real foods. I also know that with the reduction in soil quality, reduction in food quality, problems with gut microbiome and gut health, our bodies are not always able to, either from the food we eat or because of stuff going on in our own bodies, absorb the nutrients that are in the food that we should be getting from it. So in my personal view, I think supplements can be a great way to support what we're not getting from our foods, even if ideally we should be getting everything from our foods.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts around supplements? What type of supplements should we be thinking about if we do want to support our nutrition and our bodies?
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with you. I think that we should be getting most of our nutrients from our food. And as you said, doesn't always play out in the real world. And also in busy lives, if you don't have time to, eat a healthy diet. But ideally you are eating a healthy diet, and ideally people should be getting everything from their food. And supplements, by their definition, are supplementary. So they are something we should be having in addition to our healthy, balanced diet. Some things that most people should be thinking of, and there really isn't one thing for everyone, because everyone is different and everyone has different diets, and really you need to speak to someone to see what would be the right thing for you. And you might also need different things at different stages in your life as well. For example, someone who's having a period every month might need, if they've got low iron, to have an iron supplement, but once that pauses, then that might not be necessary anymore. So, I mean, things that most people should be thinking about vitamin D, especially if you live where I live in the Northern Hemisphere. And it's pretty grey here, even though it's August. So I take a vitamin D supplement and I encourage everyone in my family to, but that's because we live here and I spend a lot of time indoors, unfortunately. So vitamin D is something to think about. Omega-3s, if people are don't enjoy, healthy, oily fish, then omega-3 can be something that certain people might want to consider. And a difference at older adults, people who are on a lot of medication might really think about just having a really good all-round multivitamin, like a high strength one. Especially as we get older, things like vitamin B12 can be reduced. We might have a greater need. And also if a lot of people are on a lot of medications, can have a greater need for certain nutrients which may be depleted. Yeah, I mean, there are so many different supplements out there. I don't want to really highlight any in particular, but certainly certain age groups and uh, types of symptoms may benefit from certain things. But there's nothing really
So
that's
no one needs to
important
be
for
running
everyone.
out and, to the
No,
health
no one
shop
needs to.
buying all the supplements that they need to
No,
support
I would rather people spend the money on getting really good quality food.
food. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And if we are talking about good quality food, what are these superfoods that we're hearing about? The foods
Yes, superfoods.
that make us live forever.
I
We're going to
know.
feel amazing.
Okay, so the bad news is none of us are going to live forever. And there are certain foods that are called superfoods. But I just don't believe that there's any one food that we should be really focusing on. I think that, the evidence certainly shows that, there isn't just one. There's lots of foods have been called superfoods, blueberries and um, kale and goji berries and all sorts of things. The truth is that, historically, we would never have had access to all of these foods. We would have just had, like, I live in the UK, and 100 years ago, I would have been having cabbage and carrots and beef and oats. I wouldn't have even ever seen a blueberry probably, and I'd have only been able to eat strawberries in the summer. So we used to eat a lot more locally and a lot more seasonally. And suddenly we're like, oh, look, there's quinoa and kiwi fruits and chia seeds and all these amazing foods that we just must eat, which we would never have been able to have before. And it's lovely and it's so nice to have such a variety of foods. But I wouldn't really focus on any one particular food. Certainly you can include all these super foods in your diet, like blueberries and kiwi fruits, which is great. But I would just focus on having many different foods, a variety of different foods. So look at your plate. Have you got lots of different colours on there? Or during the course of the week, have you had lots of different colours on your plate? Have you had different types of protein? So you might have chicken one night and tofu another night and salmon another night and beans another night, so not just having the same chicken every night, but just mixing it up a little bit. One night you might have carrots and broccoli as your vegetable, another time have a red cabbage salad, and another time have some, cauliflower and peas or something. Just mix things up, have a nice variety. I would say that a variety of different colourful foods is more super than any one particular foods. Certainly some of these foods are very high in nutrition, but I don't think we need to focus on having unnaturally large amounts of any particular food.
Yeah.
And
Very
also
sensible.
like powders and things, because sometimes they powder foods and they make super powders. And
Yes.
rather people eat whole foods and then you get everything in that food.
Yeah.
If you take an
Yeah.
orange and you juice it and you have the orange juice, it's well, great. You're going to get loads of vitamin C and lots of different polyphenols and great. But you've left all the fiber behind in the orange, in the juicer,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So have the whole foods. Don't
Yeah.
eat them as a powder or as a capsule, like eat them whole. Enjoy
Yeah.
your food. People should really
Yeah.
enjoy their food and have as many as they can. And that can be a challenging thing to do in our busy lives. And I would encourage people to take shortcuts to make that easier. So using frozen foods or, pre-chopping things every, 2 or 3 days, get a load of stuff chopped or buying things pre-chopped or having tinned things as well. Just like make it easy. It's better to not be 100% perfect, but just to do it more, to be able to do it more often.
Amazing. I think that's such sensible advice and definitely takes the pressure off what so many
Yeah.
women perceive it has to look like.
Yeah.
Okay, as we come to the end of our conversation, we've touched on so many different things. As you know, this podcast is called Things I Want My Daughters to Know. And I ask every guest as we end, what do you want your daughters to know? You know, I
Hey.
know that you do have daughters, but you know, your goddaughters, your nieces, those women of the next generation, because they're going to be having very different women's health conversations, I really believe, than the conversations we had at their age. So what
Yeah.
is it that you really think they need to know?
So I do have two daughters. They are 18 and 24, and I have a lot of nieces as well. We're a very girl-heavy family, actually. And I would want all of them, my daughters and nieces, to know that they should not compare their bodies to other women's or other girls' bodies, and that they should aim to feel the best in the body that they have and that they've been blessed with, and think about all the things that their body can do and how amazing their
Message
body
that is
is.
not shared at all. And this generation who is so much on social media, that
Yeah.
is not the image and that's not the message they're hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
that's important.
it's a sad thing, and that can be a whole other podcast on social media that I'm probably really not very equipped to have actually. But yeah, I just
Yeah.
wish all young girls and all women would just appreciate the body that they have and help to and make it the best that it can be, as strong as they can be, and to use it in the way that it was meant to be used, and to enjoy food, to really enjoy lots of healthy food and a little bit of unhealthy food sometimes as well.
Yeah, you've got to have that. Otherwise,
Oh,
it
and you've
does
got to have a little,
become this,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah,
restrictive thing that is not enjoyable anymore. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Amazing. Esther, this has really been fantastic. Where can people find you if they want to follow you, if they want to connect with you, if they want to learn more
Yeah.
about what you do?
Okay. So, my website is www.estherdonoff.com. That's ESTHERDONOFF, my name. Really unoriginal. And that takes you to my website. And if you want to hear from, you can read all about me on there. And if you want to stay connected, you can click on the little ebook on my landing page and get a little booklet about some easy, quick lunches that you can make in 5 minutes. And
Amazing.
then you'll be signing up to my newsletter, which I send out once a month. I don't like to bother people too much, so I just send it out once a month.
Amazing.
And you can also follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn as well, in case you want to.
Well, definitely. I definitely think people should because you share really interesting things, practical food tips and conversations like the GLP-1 agonists. And so anyone wants to listen or watch or follow Esther, do that. I definitely recommend it. Everyone, thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us. Reach out to Esther. Reach out to me if you have thoughts about this conversation. I know that we could absolutely have unpacked the whole body image conversation much, much more. We will be doing that more in this podcast. I know there's a lot to say. It's very, very sensitive. It's a very difficult topic because there is so much emotion involved in it. So thank you for going there with us, Esther. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I look forward to sharing another episode with you at the Things I Want My Daughters to Know podcast.